Welcome, you guys. We're so excited to have you on the podcast.
We were just talking about a small internet disclaimer there in Montana. We're actually in Tennessee, and we're
rural Tennessee
in the mountains, and our internet isn't the greatest either. So if at any time anybody warbles, that's probably why. And our video will be in and out, but we'll save all the clips, all the best parts. We'll have video for.
Hopefully.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Right before we got on, you guys were talking about a momentous event in your lives that happened just yesterday. Tell us everything.
Well, what we will say, yesterday was the day it became a legal event. Because
we got married.
We got officially married at the courthouse.
Cool.
And on the same day, so 13 years ago, we did a big wedding thing where we both wore the dresses. We did the whole 9 yards.
Dads walked us down the aisles.
Nice.
Great.
And the day before we did it, Washington State,
which is where we were living,
ruled against same-sex marriages. So we were like, well, that's not why we did it in the first place. So we're carrying on.
Yeah.
And so we thought that we didn't want to lose the date because, you could forget your anniversary date. So we figured if we were going to make this legal, we had to do it on the same day.
Okay.
So,
that is so smart.
So yesterday was more of just the formality, right?
Yes, but we had a great time.
We made
so
it fun.
we had somebody who was our florist. We didn't know she gave us bouquets. So there we are. We're at the clerk, filling out the license, and we can marry yourself. You can marry yourselves in the state of Montana if you're right there at the window.
Yeah.
Right.
So we decided to do that. We took our pictures, and then we went to this French place, and we had cupcakes, that was our wedding cake 13 years ago, was this tray of like tiered cupcakes.
Yeah.
And it was lovely. And we put just married on the back of the purple Jeep.
We were convinced that, because on the form, on the thing, one of us had to be the bride and one of us had to be the groom. There are some things that never change. So we were prepared for that same sort of thing at the courthouse, but they've changed the forms.
It's now spouse one, spouse two.
Okay. That's exciting.
Yeah,
it was exciting.
Because it
was so progressive.
Well, 4 years ago, they kind of are a live and let. We have a lot of conservatives, and we have a lot of kind of free thinking people. And it's like, if you can let us keep, our guns, that's the more conservative. You can do what you want. That's kind of how it feels.
That might be a little
with
too
10 commandment signs on the side of the road. So, it's just.
If we can keep our guns, then at least we know we can shoot you if you do something we don't like.
Exactly.
Oh God, honey.
As well, I have to say, I used to have a lot of judgments about that. And then I realized the one good thing about here is people who have their guns, they do know how to use them. And that is actually an advantage, because in a lot of places where I lived in the city, people could get guns way too easily and they didn't have a clue how to use them. So I'm not really sure if I've spent a lot of time trying to talk to people who are pro-gun just so that I can understand the position. And that's the one thing I took away that I was like, well, that's a good thing.
I'm going to put my name on here too.
Okay.
I want to
The only reason I have guns is in case of the zombie apocalypse. I want to be able to defend our house and be able to maybe hunt. That's it.
Yeah. I even have my own gun for the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, but we
doesn't scare me when it's small.
You can have your own gun.
We had ours painted pink. Yeah, custom.
It's adorable.
I love that. That's cool.
As long as you know how to use it, and I'm like, and you take care of it yourself, and you're not. I don't agree with that. There's any necessary reason for an AKA weapon
47.
40s. There's just no reason to have them. But a gun is a different thing. Hunting can happen, and there's reasons.
How long have you guys been in Montana?
Unless the zombie apocalypse happens, and then
okay. You realize if the zombie apocalypse, just to let you know, zombies are dead. So the guns probably won't help.
They just kind of reform, don't they? The zombies.
I have no idea. There's many different theories.
Yeah. How long have you guys been in Montana?
11 years now. We and I never thought. We were in Seattle. Susan was in Canada before that, and I was in Seattle when we met 21 years ago. And we stayed in Seattle, and I never thought I'd move to Montana. Like, really? No way. And then we kept visiting here. We had friends, and
though I lived in Seattle for 6 years, it never seemed like it was home. There's just too much traffic. I lived on an island in Canada. So it was like, and so I told her, we're either moving back to Canada or we're going to find somewhere else. And we had been here and we loved it.
And it's a small, we live in Whitefish, which is right near Glacier National Park. So
that
it's gorgeous.
We're coming to visit, just so you know.
Good. You should.
One of our best friends is from Whitefish. She's actually born there. The Wharton, last name is Wharton. Teresa's from there.
Oh, I didn't even know.
Tracy Wharton?
Yeah, her last name is Wharton. Actually, that's her married last name. I can't remember what her maiden name was.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But they don't live here now. They live in Tennessee with you folks?
No, they live in Utah.
Yeah.
Utah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I like living in a small town. You go downtown, people know you. They ask, how are you? And they really want an answer. And I'm in the theater, and Susan's in skiing, and it's
Susan's
fun.
in skiing. Sounds like a class, but I do love the outdoors, and that does work for me.
Yeah. There aren't too many Californians in Whitefish.
No, there are.
California and Calgary. Those are the two big city liquors that come here. The state of California and Calgary.
We're a tourist town, so they all own big property.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's like Park City, too, in Utah.
That's where we're from.
Oh, wow. Yeah, for sure.
We just moved to Tennessee. We've been here a month.
We're on a side trip. This is a side trip.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I saw something on your podcast about, didn't you guys just start moving from city or something, a project of moving places?
We just got rid of all of our shit, and now we've got it condensed down to stuff we carry with us in a 10 by 30 storage unit. So
and then you're going to go different places, right? Is that the idea?
Yeah. Every time we travel, we're like, we should move here, and so we're going to actually live in places and find out if it's really all it's cracked up to be. So far, we're 0 for 3 on that theory.
Not Tennessee. Just to let you know, folks in Tennessee.
We tried Baja for 2 months. Also, we thought that was just, and I loved it. I liked Baja. Don't get me wrong. I had a great time there, but I don't think I want to live there.
Yeah, not forever. Whitefish could be one of our destinations.
I know,
because I really want to explore Glacier.
Oh, you'd love it. Come in July or August, because that's when the park's open.
So we'll be there next year probably.
Okay. September is good too. Towards the end of the month. It's actually a good time because
the kids go away.
It's not quite as packed. September is the ideal.
Yeah. Do you guys have a criteria list of what would make the right place for you to live?
A lot of it. Yeah, in a perfect world,
we have different lists.
Sort of. I'm more of a. I like the ocean better.
Speaking of conflict,
and she likes the mountain. She likes the mountains better, but we both want to be able to hike out our back door. So there's that. Hike or swim out our back door.
Yes.
And then, but a cabin in the mountains would be awesome. Community is actually a really big kind of pull for us.
Yeah.
I think I'd say that's been a big pull. Like where I lived on Gabriola, I was part of a community. It was a personal development center that I worked and lived at for many years. And it was a rich community. Yeah. And that was probably the hardest. And the hardest thing for me was, even when we moved here, it took me a long time to realize I had still such a strong community there. I wasn't building it where I was.
Right.
And so I've since committed to, okay, I'm here. So I'm building a community here in Whitefish.
And I don't think in Seattle you ever felt like you could find, like Seattle is this it's this technology, hub, but people have their little cliques, and it's really hard to kind of break into that.
I found it difficult. I mean, she rode and,
on the crew team.
She was an Olympic rower. And so when I first went there, people would go, "Oh, the Chris Campbell." And I'd be like, "Yep, that's her." Yep. And so I could tell she had she had like a whole image in Seattle that I had.
Stardom. She was a star.
A star.
So how does that work on the row team? Were you just standing there alone, or were you standing in a row with other people?
No, I was in the women's 8. I was always in the 8, so we have the coxswain makes 9 of us. And
sorry, it was a bad joke he was making.
I know.
Standing in a row, it's really bad.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I saw Oxford Blues. I know what rowing is.
Got it.
I wondered, I think that was a joke, but I thought, I'm going to let her go with this one. See where we go.
Well, let's dig into the topic that we really want to talk to you about, and that is your book and your views on conflict.
Yes.
I mean, let's just get right into it. Tell us how you came up with this idea, and I think this is your second book, correct?
It is.
Both
Yeah.
of them
So
have the same name. Like there's The Beauty of Conflict. It's our business book, Harnessing Your Team's Competitive Advantage.
mhm.
That we wrote that first, and then this is our couples book, The Beauty of Conflict for Couples.
Yes.
And igniting passion, intimacy, and connection in your relationship.
Nice.
Yes.
So, I mean, we'll just give you like kind of the spiel we often say, which is first off, we called it the beauty of conflict. We didn't say it was the ease, the comfort, the joy,
the fun.
Yeah.
you know, and because the word beauty to me has depth. And I actually really do think, like for me personally, conflict sort of saved my life at one point. And even though it was the most uncomfortable thing in the world to ever have to deal with, I always tell people it's better to surface conflict than to leave it alone. Don't ever walk away from it, because to me that can kill you. And
well, you had 6 months to live. She was given at 24, only 6 months to live because she had cancer.
Wow.
And part of what helped her get better was talking about things that
had never been talked
everybody
about.
had stuffed down.
And it erupted. I mean, you'd think, it wasn't like it turned around my health and it was great. It erupted it kind of put a chasm in my whole family, my whole community where I was then. And because a lot of the stuff that I was talking about had to do with the very charismatic community leader that nobody wanted to hear. So that totally shifted my life. This was in my early 20s, so it was a long time ago. But it had, I was so, it gradually, I was dealing with both the cancer and this like horrible situation where I kind of lost everything. But at the same time, as I spoke my truth, my health did start to get better. So I was kind of like, okay, I got to go down this road. And, that taught me show up, even if it seems like it's creating the worst possible scenario. If you hang in and you stay curious and you stay interested, something else can happen. And, so when I eventually met CrisMarie, it was like we'd have fights and she'd be like, that's it.
Well, I came from an Army colonel dad who was a real hard nose. You just did not disagree with the colonel because otherwise you're going to get hit or you're definitely going to get yelled at. Yeah. So when we would get into a fight, I'd be like, oh my God, we're over. I cannot deal with, so many times I was like, we're done.
Pat would always be like, do you want to get divorced? And I'd be like, yes, we're fighting.
It's just asking. Yeah. It was a long time.
I know, but
gosh.
Pat, I imagine for you, for me, it was so uncomfortable to have that tension. It felt like it was devastating. Like you just didn't do that. Yeah. And so, and then when I finally learned to kind of hang in, often my opinion mattered, which I was surprised. And we would come up with something that wasn't her way or my way, but it was something that neither one of us had thought about until we actually kind of hashed it out. And I was like, this stuff really works.
Well, and I think in a couple, so often you're so afraid of if I am I going to lose this? The relationship. If I say something that is difficult. But the reality of it is if you don't say it, you may stay in, but eventually going to lose the relationship anyway because you've given up a part of yourself. And and so we really do believe that conflict is the juice that allows you to kind of continue to flourish and grow if you're willing to kind of bring it up, stay in it, get messy, and stay. And remember, this was somebody I once loved, and it's obviously something that's really important to them. So
I'm not loving them right now.
I'm not,
No.
But it's interesting because so many times that's been something, that for me that I hang my hat on. Like right now, I'm not loving her, but there was a reason that we started this, and then that can kind of hang, and this is very important to her. Otherwise, we would not be in this really messy point. So that keeps me curious, and when I can stay curious, I think, then we have something that we can kind of make something new out of.
So when I read the title, it makes me think of like, the silver lining when you say the beauty of conflict. In other words, the conflict is conflict, and it's not fun while you're in it. But at the end of the day, if you both listen and hear each other, then there's a silver lining to it, right? And that hopefully you come together at a better, more kind of empowering place for both of you, right?
Well, I mean, I was just thinking you may not even ever. I know. I didn't interrupt. You were done.
Oh my, this sounds so familiar.
Stop interrupting.
We were practicing our conflict.
I was thinking more that now I don't even remember what I was going to say.
Just think.
I know what it was.
I hate that.
Sometimes I don't even know that you come to the place where you come together. I think sometimes in conflict, you have the opportunity to learn a lot about your partner and also about yourself, right? You see parts of yourself in conflict that you may or may not have realized were there. Maybe they're not your favorite part of yourself.
How do you tell me how you all recommend navigating? So there's those are the parts where you come together, you hear each other, maybe there's a compromise or you meet in the middle like we're talking about now, but then there's other times where one of us, whoever, is just behaving badly. They had a bad day, they're taking it out on each other, being super right about something is really important to them or whatever it is. So how do you, when somebody presents that type of conflict or when it presents itself in your own relationship, how do you navigate that?
And this has been, so what I have learned to do is to talk about myself. Like if, let's say, Susan's being kind of snarky or whatever, I will say,
No.
I'm uncomfortable. Yeah. We all are.
Yes, even you, Patty.
I will say, I'm uncomfortable. I don't like how you're talking to me. I don't like the volume, whatever it is.
Right.
And I'm going to take a break. So if I talk about myself and that whatever's happening over there is not fun over here, that's usually what will work for me.
And remember, like for me, if I'm the one who's having a really crappy day, if I can at least say this, I'm having a crappy day. So right now I'm just going to vent. And this really isn't about us having a dialogue. Are you willing to let me do that? And then, now, first off, she can say no, in which case then I need to go figure out what I'm going to do to vent, which is, I'll tell her, okay, I'm going to go, here's something that, because I still need to talk about this. But often by the very act of asking her and identifying, I know I'm in this place and I just need to let off steam.
Sure.
Then I can do it, and I have a safe place to do it. It's
and it feels safer over here because it's like she's acknowledging it. It's a boundary. She's not just zinging it at me. There's like a time limited and more of a structure around it. And I relax with that.
And sometimes if it's a topic that I know, like we have very different perspectives on money. So, and I know when money will come up, finances. And I'm like, okay, let's don't even start. So we have this thing, and we talk about this in the book, what we call a 5-5-5, which means she has 5 minutes to talk about whatever's up for her around money. She could say she has a full 5 minutes. I'm not going to interrupt. It's just her time. Then I have 5 minutes to talk about whatever I want to say about money. And then we have the dialogue. And that has been like a game changer for us.
It really, and we teach it when we work with couples, because it's a really good way when you have a hot topic that you never seem to get through or you keep coming back to. It's a great way to have a digestion. And because I'm always like, because she'll jump in, so I'll feel interrupted.
I'll interrupt her.
I get like, I've got my 5 minutes, my elbow room to kind of say what I need to say, which also gives me the courage to say the scary things. Because I've got, if I've got judgments or I'm upset with her, to actually include that in my 5 minutes.
And for me, I like to know that it's 15 minutes.
Totally.
We are not going to spend the next 5 hours talking about our finances.
Right.
And so it's a contained time. And it doesn't mean we won't come back to it even, the next day or the same day, but we won't spend more than 15 minutes.
We'll honor that boundary.
We'll honor that. And then
I like that.
Again.
Is it bad form to take notes in the 5-5-5?
It's not bad form. You have to kind of work that out, because we were working with one couple and she really didn't like that he was taking notes, and he's like, but I want to remember. And she's like, I think you're getting your defense. And so
didn't they work it out that she could see what he was writing, and that they came up with a way to make it work. But
because a lot is said in 5 minutes.
I like to write down something because it reminds me,
because you forget at the end of that.
Yeah, I mean, I might have a good point to make, but also, all the parts where I wanted to interrupt, I was just going to make a note. No, I'm not. I'm just kidding.
Okay,
not really.
I know.
I'm not great at taking notes anyway, but
I was going to say, when did that happen?
all right, I have I love that concept, 555. I've got another question I wanted to ask you about, though. It's so when you've got, this is something that we've been presented with a couple of times in the last 6 months or so, but I think what you've written sounds awesome. It reminds us a lot of a book that we always recommend called Crucial Conversations. And so it's kind of in that same vein, but it sounds like you go more deeper for couples, right?
Because that one's
that
other one
business.
is definitely for business. It's probably more like your similar,
right? But it's more Crucial Conversations is more structured and mental, and especially in couples, we make room for the passion and the we have a
messiness of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you get so if you're in a situation where there's a lot of conflict, let's say you're going through a tough time, and one of the people is willing to do a lot more work than the other one. In fact, if you just hand both these people a book, they read it, they come together, they're probably going to be able to work it out. But if one of them doesn't want to do that, and do you know what I mean? How do you, when you're doing your coaching, how do you coax or help a couple that's in that type of a situation? Because in order for this to work, both people have to be on board, right?
Or do they?
Well, we actually often encourage, we have a lot of people that approach us, and this is probably more women than men, because the women will say, my husband just isn't that available, he's not going to do counseling, and we often will say, well, there's still a lot you could do, because we have found that if one person really takes on the responsibility of owning what their part is and does it differently, then that has an impact on the relationship. And either one of two things, and we've seen it a number of times, either eventually the other person gets interested, like, okay, I want to read the book now because you're different. You're not nagging me about it. Right. And or they find their own way to, say, well, I want to know what you're doing. And, or they,
or it gets so strained that then it becomes clear that, well, are you there's an impact to continually choosing out, and is that the impact that you want to have on this relationship or not? So, I mean, we wound up creating like a little program for Relationship Mojo for one half of the couple, because often you have to get two people aligned to want to work on the relationship, and that often isn't the first thing that occurs.
Agreed.
Right. And having kind of worked with couples having more of the marriage and family background, over and over again, it really does come down to it's one person. If they make a change, the entire system can change. The couple can change, the family can change. I used to work with a lot of kids, and just even helping them make a shift, all of a sudden the dynamics of their parents were different. So, it really can. If I take ownership of what I can take ownership of, it has a huge ripple effect in the
same thing. Like I was in Al-Anon. My dad was an alcoholic, so I was in Al-Anon. And Al-Anon, for those of you that don't know, are for family and friends of alcoholics, and it's all about this person, me, shifting and stop trying to caretake and be codependent. And when I stop and start living my life, well, something can happen here, versus if I keep trying to change the alcoholic, it never works because they keep resisting. It's that same dynamic in a relationship. Like we worked with one woman, she wanted to do international, she wanted to do international travel. Her husband didn't. So she's like, I'm going to India, Thailand. She went to Italy. She went to France. Finally, he's like, maybe I'll go on one of those trips with you.
Yeah.
You know, after she did like 6 of them, he got interested.
We have we know a couple with that exact same scenario where they just take responsibility for herself, and she's like, I love to travel. Bye. I think that's great. And
but he wants to go on a trip with her
now. After I don't know how many years she's been doing that.
Now he does.
Now he's like, well,
but you can see him just when they're having the conversation, he just starts sweating, and he's really afraid of flying those long distances.
Yeah.
I get it. That would be tricky.
I mean, there's in a couple, or really kind of in any significant relationship, there's such a tension between the desire to be autonomous and the desire to be connected and to belong, you know. And even in marriage and family therapists, if you talk to someone, they're either of the camp of bonding comes first,
attach,
autonomy comes first. And you know, I spent a lot of years training like that, and really the problem is that the chicken and the egg doesn't make any difference. Right. That's the tension of a relationship. And so that's what you're always having to kind of navigate. And usually one person is more comfortable and wants more autonomy, and the other person wants more connection. And if people can get, and it's the same idea, if they can get, that's not right or wrong. Both have high value. And that's how come it's so important why is it so important to you that I do this with you? To ask the question as opposed to just getting, you know, like, God, why do we have to do everything together? You know, to have that curiosity, because underneath it, you can discover a lot about what's driving somebody, what's most important to them. And
that's one of the questions we have in the book that's, I think, underrated when you're at, you know, loggerheads and you're my way, your way, is to slow down and ask, okay, so why is it so important to you that I take out the trash at the end of the night? Or why is it so important to you that whatever it is, because what you'll get if you actually slow down and really want to listen, you'll get what's underneath and what's important, that core value part for your partner.
Well, I mean, and even in really big, like what can seem irreconcilable issues, like when we dealt with people who have infidelity issues, or
one's polyamorous and
one is monogamy, you know, the same thing is, if you can take the break from, we got to decide this now, to explore, why is this person asking for this? Because one, it can help them get clear. Like, why is this important to me? And we worked with one couple like that, and it had nothing, like, she had all this stuff around it, had to do with sex and picking the right person.
What was the issue?
It was the polyamory.
Okay.
But it ended up, for him, it was the way he dealt with his depression. It was a whole different thing. It was something completely different. Mm-hmm. And they ended up they came to a whole different decision about it in the end, from a completely different place. And it was in a 4-day program. So we were spending a lot of time on that particular issue, and very intently. But I think they finally got beyond, let's don't decide, let's talk about why. And then they came to a whole different place about what they were going to do. Yeah. And they're still together, and they have a whole different way of working with that. Mm-hmm. So
is the dynamic still there though? One's polyamorous, or no?
Yep. Okay. Still there. They've stayed and they still get in that the core fundamental thing that's going to.
They have to keep processing it. But they commitment to keep processing it.
And they really do. So they found a way to do it that isn't just storing each of them, which I think made sense, because they began to understand what the driver was for each of them. So, yeah.
Well, and I think you're talking about something so important that I don't know that all people in relationships really understand. And that is that no matter how much you love this other person, how close you are, all these things, there will always be things that are like that are fundamental differences in how you feel about something, how you think about something, that will always continue to come up. And so the idea of finding the beauty in that continuous conflict for the rest of your days together.
So true.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like right now, I'm not wearing pants and she is, but it's just, we're just different.
But I'm okay. You know, we're both like, well, you can wear your pants and you can have no pants. I mean,
but there's beauty in that.
For sure.
Okay.
Oh my.
All right.
It is true though. I mean, like you keep thinking, like in the book, we talk about, we come into this our relationship with a romance of who this person's going to be. That's really very little to do with her over here or him.
It's all my imagination.
Yeah. I project this on and I think she's going to be like, I used to think Susan's going to be so strong and the leader and all that sort of stuff. And then we started to cross the border in between the US and Canada. And she's like, oh my God, what line should I be in? Should I be in this one? And I'm like, who are you? Like, you are not the person I got into a relationship with. Right. And I still to this day try to change her, try to make her. And that's where that conflict comes up. And because she's not cooperating. Like I can hint, I can try, I can shame, I can do all these sorts of things to try to bring her in line with my view of who she is. And when it doesn't work, that's when we go into our conflict.
But those same things, those deep-seated, like for me, I said, she was an Olympic athlete. And I was like, I am finally going to get involved in this relationship with somebody who has as much love for athletics and the outdoors as I do. No. It's not, and over 20 years, I still have bikes that I bought. I buy myself a bike, I buy her a bike, and I think we're going to ride, and we don't. Yeah. So, and I still have my romance. Now it's a luxury RV, and maybe she'll go camping then. Yeah. I could get that, and I could.
She's still
if I don't make it wrong, like if I don't try to change her, but just, that's the root of my romance, that it comes up and I come up with ideas, and that's a beautiful thing. As long as I don't force it on her, I realize she's got to be different. Yeah. And it's fun to talk about. Like I get a kick out of the various ways she's trying to change me. And I mean, she doesn't like the way I dress for our corporate work.
I took her to a personal shopper. I didn't tell her that. Why, and I had all the outfits lined up.
That sounds like such a good idea.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
You look good for the 1980s.
Who, me? Wow.
We could get you on Queer Eye. They could do a.
Oh, I like this idea. Yeah, good idea.
But now I've told her, I'm like, okay, well, I'm clearly not going to go the direction you totally want me to go, but I'll get fancy cowboy boots or nice dress jeans and so
I have a lot of nice. I mean, I have
like
designer jeans,
1,000 t-shirts.
I have a Versace that you bought me once. I have a lot of nice stuff. The problem is my weight keeps fluctuating too much, so I can't wear them 3/4 of the time.
You gotta get new clothes.
I'm not going to go out and spend that kind of money on clothes just because I'm, too lazy to exercise.
But I mean, the more you can recognize those things that are a part of your romance and talk about them, then they actually have some juice.
Most people don't recognize that this is a romance and I'm trying to bring this person in line, or they think the partner already knows, but a lot of it is our own desires that we're not very conscious of them, or we're not very explicit with them with our partner.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, I so relate to what you guys are saying, but we've never had a conversation quite that way about, like I also would like Patrick to, exercise, and I love exercise. I'm a big hiker. I'm big into the outdoors. And so I'm always like kind of trying to trick him into ways of getting him to do that. Right.
Yes.
That romantic idea that I have about, he's a very physical, muscular, buff.
Yeah. I'm going to be that guy. Well, I was that guy.
You were that guy when I got married. He was doing construction. Oh my God. I never dated a guy with such big pecs.
No, I mean, everybody does that to a degree. You build a story. I mean, you're kind of conditioned to do that a little bit.
But it's interesting though that.
No, I'm okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I wasn't really interrupting.
No.
I was just going to say it's interesting that we hold on to those stories. I mean, you guys have been together how long?
20 years.
21 years?
21. We've been together 23 years, and we still have that. We still have those romantic ideas about each other that are really, as you mentioned, of our own design. So I love that we're going to have a cool date night.
Yeah.
Well, we actually do.
No, of course not.
When one of the things we love about bringing couples together and having them work is because usually in the room there's people that have been together for 30 years.
There's
newlyweds. And it's so fun to even have them witness each other and begin to talk to each other about the romances or this, and put that out there. Because someone does see 35 years later, that's still there, even though, they're afraid they're going to lose it in the next 6 months. And it's like, no, but you could talk about it, and it might even last longer. Believe me, it'll help you if you actually, own that you have these expectations and enjoy them, because it is what makes it kind of fun, what I can project on to somebody, but not so much if I do it without any consciousness.
Well, I think when we do it without consciousness, we really resent our partner for not living up to what we in our own mind are thinking they should, they should keep coming over here and be like this. This is the right.
So
hinting, cajoling, tricking.
We do a lot of trade-off too. I mean, there's like, so one of my we were talking about just the other day, where she asked me, I know you don't really like doing this, and I'm like, no, but I do like watching you smile. So if we go do that, then I'm going to get to watch you smile, and then tomorrow we'll do something maybe I like that you get to watch me smile.
I like that. And I agree, to be interested enough, like, hey, this is so important to you. Like, I want to see you smile, or I want to learn how it is for you. I'm willing to come along with that. I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, should I tell the nude bungee? Yeah. So one of my most classic experiences with a couple, and this was a couple that when they presented to me, they were really ready to leave, and they were done. And I, you always hear about date night, and I was talking with them about ways to kind of rekindle something, and so I suggested date night, but I did put a little caveat on it. I said, what I really want you to do is pick a day. You're going to call it date day. And you flip a coin, and one of you gets to pick whatever it is that you really love and are passionate about. And your partner, their job is to just say yes, and to say yes because they are genuinely curious about what it is you love about that. And so, so I sent them out, and they had a session a couple of weeks later, and they come back in, and the woman was just radiant. They were both like, you could tell, like they've been transformed. And I was like, wow, this is cool. What happened? And she goes, we went nude bungee jumping. And I remember I wasn't like, kind of off the grid. Extreme. Like, wasn't it all what I was thinking, but I've learned to just, say more, and she said, I could tell from your face, but you were like me. When he first said that's what he wanted, I was like, no way am I going nude bungee. That is mean. You can't do that. She got like, and then she said, I heard your voice. My job is to just be curious and to agree. So she got curious, and it ends up in this particular location they were at. There's one day a year you can go for free. Mm-hmm. And it's, you don't have to pay. And he didn't
if you're nude.
If you're nude.
Oh,
and
okay.
So that's why he picked it. He always wanted to try it. He didn't really want to go nude either. So they had a great conversation about that. He was, but he said, it's free, and we've never done anything like this before. And would you be willing, And so they had, first off, that was critical. And then they went, and she loved it. And they both had it was such a big thing for them. But it just reminded me of, like, if I can get out of she's, if she suggests something, she's not trying to be mean. This might be something she loves. If I can be curious, like, okay. Yeah. And that, I think of that all the time. Like, who would have thought?
Nude bungee jumping.
We haven't done anything that extreme, but I mean, it's not that extreme really. It's just kind of a twist on it. But we're big believers in kind of shared adventure.
Yeah, trying new things together too. Yeah.
Well, I saw that zip lining version that you have on your website. That seemed really cool.
Yeah, that was in Mexico.
That was in Mexico.
That was one of our couples trips that we did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. Zip lining wasn't that intense, but there
was a giant swing.
The swing was pretty good.
They drop you 300 feet straight down, and then you just swing out. But that was more intense than bungee jumping for me because the free fall was so long, but you're both together.
Yeah,
my God.
Oh, wow.
I just be screaming her ears off.
It was pretty much that way. It was the most fun for me was watching everybody else do it because of the faces and the screams. The loudest blood-curdling scream I heard was from a man.
Oh, wow.
It's super macho guy. He's like,
Oh,
It's
I
not
felt so
sweet.
bad for him. He was so scared.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he powered through. Something you keep saying, Susan, and I'm a huge fan of this idea in any kind of really emotional situation, or yeah, when conflict's coming up or when I get triggered, and that is to just stay curious. And if I can get back to that, my own personal experience is that it makes everything so much easier.
Oh,
Mhm.
I totally, that to me, you know, even with my cancer, that was the thing. I remember when somebody told me cancers are your own cells turning against themselves. They're not some foreign body. And I remember it was like, I got curious about it then. Like if I didn't
Yeah.
see it as this like death sentence, but something to be curious about, that totally changed my relationship to that whole experience. And
in a relationship, the biggest thing is when you're not curious to start there and say, I am. And sometimes I'm like, I am not curious right now.
It's true. We're the loud household. We do, you know.
But when I do that, it's something that aligns inside, outside, and then there's space. And often when I can say, I'm not curious right now, I can, things start to shift and I start to become, because that's obviously my goal and I'm not able to do it right in that moment, but it's an alignment that shifts and I all of a sudden have curious.
Maybe you could be curious about why you're not curious.
Yeah, exactly. I'm feeling defensive right now.
It doesn't really work if I say that. So I'm just saying, not the line.
No, she cannot say that. I can say that.
Right.
I just want to punch you.
I'm curious about, you know, it seems like when you guys are talking about conflict, you know, there's a lot of work and people that preach about, you know, what conflict should look like. And, you know, you shouldn't yell, you shouldn't, you know, there's all these should nots. And
judgments.
There's a lot of judgment about conflict and how it should be done and how it should look and all these things. And, you know, we engage in many different ways in conflict, and sometimes we're yelling and sometimes we're, you know, taking time out, and, you know, it can look any number of ways. And we also know a lot of people in very happy long-term relationships who have explosive fights. So I'm curious what you guys
are like mean to each other.
Yeah, like super, like go right to the bone of saying really shitty things to each other. But yet they can come out of that conflict on the other side, and I think find the beauty in that. So is there anything you guys say in your book about as far as like judging how the conflict occurs, or are you passionate about how it happens, or like what are your thoughts on what it looks like?
Well, we do have thoughts on it. And one of the things I think why people want to make it so controlled and like, we can't yell, you can't say whatever, is I think there's just, you know, some of us have varying degrees of trauma based on conflict. And so we have violence velcroed with anger. And they are two different things. Anger is just the energy of, I'm upset. Violence is the crossing of someone's boundary without permission. So either that could be even yelling in someone's face, but physically hitting them or pushing, whatever. Yeah. And so I think that's why everybody's like, no. We need to make it safe, meaning we can't yell or whatever it is. And so each couple has to kind of figure out what they can tolerate too, and deal with I've had to work with my own nervous system to recognize Susan is not my dad. I am going to be safe, even if her voice raises. And I still get triggered. So saying stuff, it's like, right now I'm having a little hard time hearing you is important.
I think, you bring up something because people have these beliefs that there's this definition of respectful or okay. And really, we all define what's safe differently.
Or respect.
Or any of that. And so that's the conversation to have. Like in my world, it was way safer if things were loud and being yelled about, because at least it was out in the open. It could still be dangerous, but what was even more dangerous if it was silent. That's when you knew, something really bad was going on. So very different. Nice and polite in my world meant something evil is on the other side, which, that's probably isn't the norm, but at least I know that about myself, and I've learned to be able to talk about it, and let CrisMarie know, no, this is probably why I actually like it when it's louder, because I actually think it's more honest being said. But that doesn't mean I have to create a fight either. So I've had to learn, some people are actually nice and polite and they're not evil. They just are.
I think it's just totally different depending on who you are. Like we mentioned one couple. I mean, even ourselves, we both recognize that if we raise our voices and come at each other, then the other person's probably not going to feel that safe. They're going to raise their defenses, and it's not going to be very productive. So we try to, I think with the two of us, we try to use more respectful words so that we don't raise the other person's defensive guard, wouldn't you think?
But sometimes you just have to get it out, and then
it has to get messy. You have to be willing.
Comes out messy.
Yeah, and I think we have a lot more tolerance. We've had friends that are like, no, more like it always has to be calm. And we create space for messiness and cleaning it up. So one of Susan's favorite phrases, it's not what you do, it's what you do next.
Sure.
And it's like, even if I'm like, I want to blame you right now, or even saying that right now, all I want to do is blame you, and then how can I take more responsibility? How can I take what's going on for me? I feel threatened. It's like owning what's happening inside. But because one of the things I think that's deadly in health and in a couple is if I try to tamp down my natural anger that's happening. Now, that doesn't mean it flies off the hook, but to have a space where I need to get mad right now, or I am upset, or this is not okay with me, is, for me, that's a healthy thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's important, critical for health and relationships. Being able to know it's going to be messy. I mean, we actually do the same thing happens in business. Like we've constructed a culture of trying to make it safe, and the reality is we have some really tough topics that people have a lot of rage and anger about, and if you can't talk about them, and without knowing it's going to get messy, because there's been a lot of times where this has never been permitted to talk about.
Like diversity and inclusion, or Me Too things.
All sorts of things. And sex, politics, and money. Those things that nobody likes to talk about. And when you do start to talk about them, there's usually a lot of emotional stuff that's underneath the surface that has to have some room. So any way you can, find a way to say, we can do this. Even if it's like, I've often thought, if you use blah, 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 you don't have to, it's a way to move the energy. And then you can, now what the words are behind that would come out differently. But something to energetically get something out is important. And
I mean, even when we first started and I didn't know what to do, so I kept wanting to leave, Susan said, I would rather you say it. Like, I know you're frustrated, so say it. I'm going to get, it's kind of like giving real-time permission to be as messy, and then we'll clean it up. Because to get out what my truth is, sometimes I can't censor it and get it all lined up so it comes out nicely.
Well, and sometimes you don't know what it is either.
No, I agree.
Or you're working on this surface level in this deep pit of whatever emotion that you're feeling, and sometimes I don't even know what I'm mad about. Sometimes I think I know, and then it takes me some time and maybe even some conversation to figure out what the fuck I'm really mad about.
Yeah, that's true. We agree.
Yeah. I cuss on every episode. It's like
you cuss. We all cuss. Our first book was, rather than conflict, we had at the top of our model, it was "Oh shit."
Because then we got, someone said you can't say that. We were like, oh my goodness, but it happens in your head,
So you said something a few minutes ago about it's not what you do now, but it's what you do next. And of course, I thought of makeup sex, but you do have an interesting, which I absolutely agree with, right? A take on the maybe too much makeup sex is an unhealthy. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, because we were doing the final edits for our books. You got the early edition, and we have the great sex is not a crucial conversation. And we thought, well, yeah, I wouldn't want a crucial conversation. I want great sex, but it doesn't really resolve. If you have great sex, sure, the energy is discharged. Okay, we're fine. That was fun. But the issue hasn't at all been resolved. And so it's going to repeat. So you get this cycle going that is not necessarily, maybe fun in the moment, and it does charge good sex because you're kind of it doesn't resolve that issue that I don't feel heard or something's going on there.
Right.
I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges for relationships that really, where you want to be sustainable, resilient, and long lasting and have intimacy. And we define intimacy as intimacy, like it's not about sex. It's about,
Right.
as soon as you start to move down the path of getting to know each other, sexual charge can become it goes down a bit. Because there is something about the mystique and the mystery. And
it's sometimes easier to have sex with a stranger than it is this person that actually knows you.
And
Right.
so then actually you have to be willing to engage in different ways to have that same charge or excitement. And sometimes couples will say, well, I don't want to do that. And it's like, okay, then keep everything a secret because it'll be very charged and you'll have great fights, but you won't actually have much intimacy.
And one of the ways to put sexual charge back in is we're all living, breathing human beings. So even though we've picked this person to be with, we're still attracted to other human beings. We are.
Yes, we say that too.
Yeah.
And to deny that is a little weird.
It is weird.
And it's just not honest.
It's not.
Yeah.
And it's and maybe people are even denying it to themselves. Like it's for crap.
Yeah.
But what actually can create some more juice in the relationship if I'm attracted to somebody to actually say, well, you know what, I actually think she's really attractive or he's really attractive. And that actually, I'm bringing that intimacy here about my sexual charge out there. If I keep that a secret, let's say I'm working with this guy, I'm more apt to I'll go closer over there to have, whatever, I could have an affair versus I'm bringing that charge in here.
Okay.
And that's often a different way people they're like, what? I can't talk about my.
I like that as a technique to bring the charge back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if it's me that's hearing it, my thing would be to talk about if I'm jealous and let her know that I am jealous. Wow. Cause that's not me. Like I'm gray-haired and I'm not that fit and tuned and how the hell is this gonna work? And if I talk about that, that's me staying more real in the relationship and that's actually another big part that can bring in more juice and aliveness because that's a path through it.
Well, sometimes,
and that's also that creates intimacy.
It
too,
does.
telling your truth about feeling jealous or
well, it can
insecure about it, or that creates an opportunity for emotional intimacy, right? About that.
And it can ignite.
Yes.
It can ignite some passion also because sometimes we get complacent, in our long-term relationships where we're going through the motions more, or we're paying more attention to work or other things, and somebody mentions, well, I got to tell you, this person over here is pretty attractive, and you're like, whoa,
this guy does it for me.
I don't think I'm paying attention at home. I better get back there and get down.
It's true. Esther Perel talks about it in her Mating in Captivity as the threat of the third. Like there's somebody out there. So wait a minute. I can't just expect this person just to hang out with me if I'm not like keeping my game.
And I know, so CrisMarie does community theater and she loves acting and being it. And she always gets picked for the sexy parts, and usually she's got some hot scene on the stage with one of our local guy actors that's, and it's kind of, and sometimes it's really inconvenient when she's in a theater situation because it's like,
we can't travel,
we can't work.
Right.
It's very, she loves it. And so whenever she brings it up, I'm kind of like, another theater project, really? and then what she'll do is she'll go, well, I'm not going to do it. And then I get even more mad at her. Like, okay, I want you to be alive and do what you love. Yeah. And you got to let me be pissed off about it. And
then jealous when I'm kissing the guy on stage.
And you can, because that's actually where we're both more fully alive, Yeah. It really pisses me off when she decides to not do something because I'm upset about it. It's like, let me own my upsetness. Let me have it.
Well, honestly, and you want her to do that because next month you get to go on the RV trip.
Pat is thinking ahead. You're smiling, I'm smiling. You're smiling, I'm smiling.
Yeah. We have to take turns because I don't know how much we really have in common. So we're just like, oh, you're smiling. You look so cute. Now I get to smile. Now it's your turn.
Yep.
I love it.
Well, it has actually helped me realize when, and I think it's probably true for you too. There's things that when she's doing something she's passionate about, if I'm really upset about it and I don't want her to do it, 9 times out of 10, if I step back, it's because there's something I'm not doing to take care of myself.
Yep.
Yes.
I can, instead of trying to get her not to take care of, join me in my misery. if I step back and go, wow, what is it that I'm not doing? And then pursue that. It's way more enlivening and bring it.
Yeah.
And sometimes we do it apart, and then it's really fun to come back together, and like share with each other this passion we each participated in. So, we think that's healthy.
Yeah. We just did a couple podcasts about, owning your own happiness.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of the same concept, right? When you're feeling unhappy and it's just easy to be like, God, I hate why did you bring me here? Or why are you not doing this? Or why are you doing this? It's easier to look outside than to be like, why am I not taking care of myself? Why am I not doing the things that light me up? Because I'm responsible for that. He's not responsible for that.
Exactly.
Or even if you're in a place where, it wasn't in the top 10 on your list. And
like rural Missouri. I mean, oh, shit, we're in Tennessee.
Anyway, it's one of the things
Missouri was the last place we moved that wasn't my favorite. You took me there too.
It's usually about being present within yourself, though. It's like you can complain about where you are, or you can say, what can I do that will light me up that's around me right now? So there's always something.
Yeah, there's always something.
Yes, it's true. And one of my triggers is when I'm blaming Susan, I have to think about, okay, what is it that I'm not taking care of right now? Which I like to blame her a lot. So there's a lot of, opportunities for people.
Most of the time it's usually Sam's fault, but there are a few times where I agree with you. I probably.
I mean, one thing that often people get upset with us when we say it, but it's like, if you're feeling resentful, that is because there's some place in your life where you're not taking ownership of your own boundaries or what you need to do for yourself. And so often people who are really resentful don't get that. It's all focused out there. Mm-hmm. And, that is, maybe something did happen that stimulated that brought that all on. But if you keep staying in that position and don't take ownership of what you can change, then you're just suffering.
Yeah.
And
what happens when you become resentful of the resentment? So this is a legit thing. I mean, I kind of already know the roots of it, but I'd love to hear your take on it. And that is that a lot of couples go through where the guy's working his ass off and, there's multiple, like Sam will resent me for not doing more laundry. And I'm like, I've been fucking busy as shit this week. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And by the way, we made good money this week and, or whatever the thing is. And so she's resenting me for not doing the laundry. I'm resenting her for resenting me and not acknowledging we don't do this that much anymore, but it was an ongoing thing.
Is this because I asked you to do the laundry today?
No, that was legit because most of it's mine.
Well,
it
comes up for us. I mean, the same thing, like Susan tends to cook and take care of the dogs, and I tend to more do the sales and things like that. So I'll be more like, well, don't you see me working so hard here? How can you not? And I think it's probably what she would say is, okay, you're doing more than you didn't ask me to help you with that. There's things she could have done. And so we didn't actually have a conversation about what are we doing and how are we going to do this so that it feels okay? So usually when we get into that resent, which I get, it's kind of coming together and saying, okay, what is it that in our whole life circle, what is it that we're doing? And do we feel okay with how we're doing it? And do we need to share some more or trade off?
Yeah.
And not, because so often in couples, it's so easy to fall into what seems like a role or this is how we do this. You do the bills, I take out the garbage, you feed and we actually never have any conscious conversations about those things. or really honor and recognize that, oh yeah, there are things that you're doing that, I mean, often I'll say to her, I had no idea that that was your to-do list. Like, never talk to me about your to-do list. I might have actually had some,
and I'm like wearing it like a heavy burden, like I'm doing this,
and then, so it is kind of like making sure you take the time to have a conversation at some point on a regular basis, because I think couples don't do that either. Make a time to say, let's talk about what's working, what's not. How are we actually doing?
I mean, we do this with business teams all the time. They often aren't meeting and discussing what's working with them. So we start that. Right. Couples do that same thing. And it would kind of like, well, where are we? Where are you resenting me? Or where are we not having much fun? Or on a weekly basis to have a little meeting. It sounds crazy, because most of the time we're brushing our teeth and saying, well, where are you going to move next? You're making these important decisions and not really kind of framing the time to have that deeper conversation.
I got it.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's actually, again, that would be where the 555, a great tool for that. Because that, there was one point in we don't ever do vacations. That's just not something, I guess it's the Army Colonel Dad. I don't know, but the vacations are hard to come by. And so we planned this yoga retreat, this great 7-day yoga retreat. We arrive at this beautiful palapa, and we walk, CrisMarie, we get in there, and she's like, I just have to tell you, I'm not satisfied with the relationship. I just remember my jaw almost dropped. Like, really? One time we're on vacation, and now you watch us.
Like, we're on vacation, I'm going to drop a bomb.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
But I'm a big believer in, that these tools work. So I said, let's just try something. Let's just have a 555 once a day about how dissatisfied or satisfied we are in our relationship.
And then go on and enjoy the yoga retreat.
Yeah. And she said once a day will not be enough. So we agreed on a morning and an evening. She could call a second. And, all sorts of stuff came out of that. And it was really, and we enjoyed the yoga retreat.
We did.
And, but mostly I think a lot of other things that really had nothing to do directly with the relationship. There were because we work and we have our business. There was a whole lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
But if we hadn't have taken that time, it would have never come out. So that can be a way to have that come to a head too, like the deal with the resentment of the resentment.
Sure.
That it's time for a 555 when you're there.
When you're resenting the resentment.
Yeah, yes,
exactly. Agreed, 100%.
I wanted to
I want you to
we
ask
should have like a card or something, or like raise our hands when we want to ask.
We need
your
that.
Turn, my turn.
What's the talking stick or whatever they pass?
Yeah, we should have exactly. I think we have somewhere.
Go ahead, honey.
I wanted to know, we've covered a lot of topics, but I wanted to know if there was anything like your favorite part of what you teach, your book, your whatever.
That was exactly what I was going to ask.
Oh,
I was going to actually ask what one question have we not asked you that is kind of the same thing?
Kind of the same, yeah.
Give us a core thought.
Yeah, your favorite thing about what you teach, and
you can go separately if you want.
Yeah, you'll probably have different ones, right?
Well, I mean, so my favorite thing about what we get to do is that I think, relationships and our stories that we have about what a relationship is or isn't are so narrow and so restrictive. It's and that there is so much possibility when we recognize that. And we begin to actually consider that there is no right, wrong way there really isn't a right, wrong when it comes to relationships. And when I get there, the expansion and inclusion in that and the aliveness with that is so rich. And I know that myself, and I've seen it in couples that just when that light goes on, it's like what seems like there's no freaking way we could ever do this. Suddenly they get it. Like, oh, maybe there is. And that to me is the best.
Yeah.
Yes, the possibilities.
I would say so many, like when I coach women one-on-one, they're wondering, God, did I marry the wrong person? They're often perseverating on that. that question.
You think
And-
only women or men?
Well, these are the women that I'm sure men do too, that I very long.
Yeah.
And I think what's so possible is there's so much more you can learn about your partner and yourself if you stop thinking they're the problem and get curious and interested in what's happening inside of me and take more ownership and responsibility. Because you can transform, that's where one person doing the work can really transform the whole relationship. And it's so powerful. And I've seen it just with my own, like, God, did I marry the right person? This is just from yesterday. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that was 2 minutes ago.
Good thing we made it legal. No,
Yeah.
But I realize when I'm thinking she's the wrong person, it's usually something that I'm not taking care of for myself. And there's just so much more richness we can, if we get out of the roles and what we think things should be and get curious and interested and ask, why is this so important to you? Take that time. It gets much more, there's a sense of fulfillment that comes as opposed to you're the wrong person. If I just get the right person, everything will be fine, is such a lie.
It's so not true. The grass is never greener. The grass
it never is. The same thing's going to happen.
Yeah.
Curiosity and interest are things that can only happen in the present, aren't they? Would you say that? That's when that really is. That's kind of my thing. I always come back to it, and Sam makes fun of me, but I honestly believe
that's the theme of every podcast.
If you can't be present, then
being
you can't
present.
fix it.
Hey, it's a beautiful thing. I love that you did that.
Well, what I would agree with is curiosity can bring the past into the present moment. So it is still, and that to me is what makes it possible to change, for something to shift. So I'm with you. I think I can.
Me too. I'm with you on that one.
And so leave it on that. Everybody thinks I'm right. And we're out.
No, hey, let's give you a minute. We want you guys to give you a chance to do a shameless plug. Tell us what you're up to, what you're selling, where people can find you. Give us all the goodies.
Okay.
Well, our book is available for pre-order or order at Amazon.com, The Beauty of Conflict for Couples. And we also offer a course, Relationship Mojo and Couples Mojo, where we use equus. We actually bring couples out and deal with their dynamics of issues in working with a horse.
Okay.
And all that information can be found. Well, the book you can find that on Amazon. There's a whole bunch of other bookstores too, but Amazon's the main one.
It's
easy. Yes. Yeah. There's we're going to have a website, thebeautyofconflict.com, which should probably be up by the time this airs. Okay. And our website with our programs and things is Thrive Inc. THRIVEINC.com. And that's where we have the Couples Mojo and the Relationship Mojo as well as our corporate work and all the other things that we do, coaching and couple coaching.
And we do some great programs here in Montana. So if anyone is interested in coming and enjoying the beauty of Montana, it's worth it.
Email. Invite us. We'll be there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. If anybody.
Whitefish is beautiful too. We could incorporate like a couples trip and glacier one day and
have you guys work with the people that we're working with.
Yes, it would be fun. We could do some equus stuff with them, bring out a horse. It would be really fun.
Yeah.
We'd love that.
We'd do something. That's a great idea.
And you should definitely on your travels, check out Whitefish. It's a really cute community.
We're supposed to have done it years ago, but it's definitely on our list.
It's on the list.
It's high on the list, actually, Glacier.
Thank you for having us on your show.
Oh my gosh, it's been awesome.
Are you on Facebook?
Yes, we're on Facebook. CrisMarie Campbell, Susan Clarke, and Thriving MT, I think is our Facebook for Montana MT.
Oh,
gotcha.
Yes, Thriving MT. All right, love it. Thank you, ladies. We have enjoyed everything.
Thank you, and good luck with that travel plan and finding the right place.
We might call you if the conflict gets too weird.
We're happy to help.
Yes. Okay.